Mythology Uncovered explores the myths of ancient civilizations. Mythology Uncovered.
Okay, so when you think of the Greek creation myth, you probably have a specific story in mind, right? It starts with this big empty void called chaos, then comes Earth, and pretty soon you've got Zeus throwing down with the Titans. And yeah, you'd be totally right. That's the famous version. But lurking in the shadows, there was this other story, a rival account that was, let's just say, a whole lot wilder, stranger, and way more shocking.
So, that kind of begs the question, what was the original Greek creation myth? Well, the answer is way more complicated than you'd think. See, for centuries, it wasn't about one single story. It was a competition. All right, let's break down this mythic rivalry. In one corner, you've got the poet Hesiod. His version, the Theogony, basically became the standard, the one everybody knew. But in the other corner, we have this collection of texts tied to the legendary poet Orpheus. And these Orphic myths, they were the deviant rivals, always trying to one-up Hesiod, always claiming to be older, wiser, more profound. It was like a battle of the bards for the soul of the entire cosmos.
So, to really get how this rivalry worked, we've got to start where all these stories do, right at the very beginning. How did each of them decide to kick things off?
Okay, so Hesiod's version is the one we're all familiar with. First up, there was chaos. And, we're not talking about confusion here, but a huge yawning chasm. From this emptiness, the big players emerge. You've got Gaia, the earth, dark Tartarus down below, and Eros, the force of love or attraction. It's a pretty powerful and honestly a fairly straightforward place to start.
But the Orphic poets, they looked at Hesiod's chaos and were basically like, that's it? Hold my beer. We can go way deeper. Their whole strategy was to one-up him by claiming to have older, more ancient knowledge. And they did this by arguing that, well, before Hesiod's chaos, something else was already there.
And this is where the Orphic tradition gets really, really fascinating, because there wasn't just one alternative beginning, there were a bunch of them. Depending on which text you read, the universe might start with night, or maybe Chronos, that's unaging time itself. Other versions kick off with primordial water, or, and this is the most famous one, a cosmic egg. The key thing to get here is that every single one of these was a deliberate move to make Hesiod's story look like it was jumping in halfway through.
And that brings us to maybe the most memorable Orphic idea of all, the cosmic egg. In these stories, this egg just appears right at the dawn of time. And when it hatches, out comes the very first creator god, a being named Phanes. What's wild is that Phanes was often described as bisexual, meaning it was a totally complete, self-contained being that could create everything else all by itself. No partner needed.
And I really gotta stress this. You will find nothing about a cosmic egg in Hesiod's account. It is a purely Orphic symbol. It's like a big signpost telling you that you've stepped into a different and much, much stranger version of reality. Okay, so let's see how this rivalry keeps building from here.
All right, round 2 in this cosmic battle is all about how the gods actually, well, how they make more gods. In other words, we're diving into the messy world of divine reproduction.
Now, in Hesiod's story, things start out a little weird, with Earth just birthing heaven all on its own, but they settle down pretty fast. The gods start pairing up. The Titans, for example, get into these orderly brother-sister marriages. The whole system starts to look like a recognizable family tree, albeit a divine one.
The Orphic myths, on the other hand, they just completely double down on the weirdness. I mean, here you've got new beings just coagulating out of matter. That first god, Phanes, it literally copulates with itself. And the whole incest theme, it doesn't just stop. It gets way more violent, way more extreme, and it all leads to Zeus himself committing absolutely horrific acts of rape against his own mother Rhea and then his own daughter Persephone.
And look, if you want to know just how far the Orphic myths were willing to push things, just listen to this. An ancient writer named Athenagoras recorded this really shocking detail, that Zeus turned himself into a dragon to assault his own mother, and then did the exact same thing to his daughter. This wasn't just for shock value, it was a calculated move, a way to break every taboo to signal that this story held deeper, more dangerous secrets.
This whole escalation thing really hits its peak in the final showdown, the rise of Zeus. Because Hesiod and the Orphics give us two completely different versions of how the king of the gods came to power.
So Hesiod Zeus is basically a master strategist. He's not just about brute force. He plays politics, he negotiates, he goes and frees his monstrous uncles, the 100-handers, to get them on his side. He promises power and prestige to any god who joins his team. He is, for all intents and purposes, a celestial politician building a coalition to take down the old guard.
The Orphic Zeus? He has absolutely no time for politics. His path to power isn't about making deals, it's about total, absolute consumption. He doesn't just want to rule the cosmos, he wants to literally become the cosmos.
And to lock down his reign for all time, the Orphic Zeus pulls one final absolutely mind-blowing move. He tracks down the very first creator god, Protogonos, who is basically another name for Phanes, and he swallows him whole. Yeah, by literally eating his own ancestor, Zeus absorbs the very power of creation and reboots the entire universe from inside himself.
There's this amazing ancient verse found on a burned papyrus scroll from all the way back in the 4th century BCE that just perfectly sums it all up. The Orphic Zeus isn't just a king, he is everything. He's the beginning, he's the middle, he's the end. He contains all of existence within him. It's the ultimate expression of absolute power. So you have to ask, why? Why did the Orphic tradition go to such crazy lengths? Why make everything so much weirder, so much wilder, and so much more violent than the story everyone already knew?
Well, the answer is pretty wild. The strangeness was the entire point. All those shocking details, the cosmic egg, the self-reproduction, the dragon rapes, the god-eating, they were all signals. They were rhetorical flags designed to tell the audience, hey, pay attention, this isn't just some simple bedtime story. This is a riddle, and it's hiding a much deeper wisdom.
So you can pretty much break down their competitive playbook into 4 main steps. Step 1, go back farther in time than your rival. Step 2, make the whole process of creation way more bizarre and unnatural. Step 3, escalate the violence and break every taboo you can think of. And finally, step 4, make your hero's victory not just political, but absolute and metaphysical.
At the end of the day, the Orphic argument was actually pretty simple. A more extraordinary story must hold more extraordinary truths. By giving you a universe born from all this shocking, deviant stuff, they were basically claiming that their wisdom ran deeper, and their authority was way greater than that mainstream version that everybody had already heard 1,000 times.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? This ancient strategy feels, well, strangely modern. Think about it. From cryptic spiritual texts to really complex conspiracy theories, we are still drawn to this idea that the stranger, the more shocking a story is, the more likely it is to hold some deep hidden truth. So what does that say about our own search for meaning today?